Meet Christian Fernandez, the 12-year-old who tragically took the life of his 2-year-old stepbrother in a fit of rage, making him the youngest person in the United States to be charged as an adult with first-degree murder. How could someone so young commit such a horrifying crime? And where were his parents during this tragic event? Let's delve into the details. In Jacksonville, Florida, 12-year-old Christian Fernandez resided with his mother Susanna and younger brother. As the eldest, Christian often took on the responsibility of looking after his younger brothers and sister whenever his mother was away. On March 14, 2011, Susanna left Christian in charge while she ran errands. Upon her return, she discovered her 2-year-old son David unconscious and bleeding from his nose. Christian claimed to his mother that David had fallen from the bunk bed and lost consciousness. Despite the severity of David's condition, Susanna opted not to seek immediate medical assistance. Instead, she attended to superficial treatments like changing his clothes, cleaning his face, and applying ice to his head, hoping he would regain consciousness on his own. Susanna believed her son might have a concussion and expected him to awaken soon, so she didn't consider seeking medical assistance. Instead, she spent the ensuing 4 hours browsing the internet. Although she claimed to be researching head injuries to aid her son, her online activity painted a different picture. During this time, Susanna watched YouTube videos, listened to music, conducted online banking, read news articles about Pippa Middleton, checked her email, and occasionally visited websites related to concussions and comas. Despite these activities, she remained unmoved to have her still unconscious son examined. Only after her final search for a nearby hospital did she take her injured 2-year-old for medical attention. It turns out David had serious brain injuries due to force trauma, which basically means someone or something hit his head really hard, causing his brain to bleed. This situation was super concerning to the hospital staff, and by law, they had to report the incident to the authorities. Not only because a 2-year-old is literally dying from a terrible head trauma, but apparently, this wasn't the first time he had been in the hospital with a serious injury. In January 2011, about 2 months before this tragic incident, David was brought into the hospital because he had broken his leg. Christian would later admit to investigators that he was the one who broke his young brother's leg when they were doing yoga. Also, his mother had told him to lie, saying David fell at the playground so she wouldn't be investigated by the Children and Family Service. Following the second incident, investigators sought to interview Christian about the events involving his younger brother. Initially, Christian told the investigator that it was a freak accident and his young brother was carrying books on his head and they fell on him. However, the investigator remained skeptical of this explanation and pressed Christian to reveal the truth. At this point, Christian didn't really understand the seriousness of the situation he was in, and he only wanted to get himself out of trouble, which is reasonable for a kid his age. But eventually, he told the investigators the truth. He pushed his little brother because he was angry, and even more concerning, he said that he was upset with his brother because of something his stepfather did. Christian admitted that he got angry and shoved his brother into the bookshelf twice.
The shelf. Can you show me with the doll how you push him into the shelf?
Right,
So, show me with the doll how you...
I push it in.
Which caused him to pass out. Then he carried him to bed and called his mom. Later, his mom drove them to the hospital, and that's how we got here. Tragically, despite 2 days of battling for survival, David Galarga succumbed to his worsening head injury. The alleged assault now became a murder case. The news of Christian Fernandez, a 12-year-old implicated in the death of his 2-year-old young brother during a burst of anger, sent shockwaves through the community. In the wake of this revelation, a flurry of debates and impassioned reactions ensued among the public. While some insisted that Susanna should bear responsibility for her son's tragic demise, citing negligence, others pointed to potential psychological and mental health factors at play, underscoring the known volatility of children's emotions. But they don't always kill people in a fit of rage. A lot of speculations were made about potential anger issues, and maybe even some domestic abuse. Mainstream media and law enforcement started digging into the family's history, and what they found was beyond horrifying. So something that the public noticed was Susanna was only 25 years old, yet she had a 12-year-old son. That means she had him when she was under the age of consent, and it gets worse. Apparently, Susanna conceived Christian when she was just 12 years old, with a man named Jose Antonio Fernandez, who was 20 years old. That is crazy. It is unspecified whether it was a forced situation. But Jose Antonio Fernandez ended up being criminally charged for having relations with a minor, but was given a reduced sentence of 10 years probation and had to register as an offender. Later, Fernandez quickly disappeared from Susanna and their child's life. leaving the young mother to raise Christian by herself. When Susanna was 14, both she and her son were taken from the custody of Susanna's mother, who had a substance problem. Things kept getting worse. By the time Christian was 7, his mother had married another man named Luis Galagara Blanco and had 3 children with him. One of them was David. Remember how Christian said he was upset with his stepfather during the interrogation? Well, there's an even darker story to that. In October 2009, before the family moved from Miami to Jacksonville, Fernandez's stepfather was summoned by the police many times to warn him about using violence and child abuse in the family. He apologized and promised to fix it. But after leaving the police station, he still had the same behavior and was still cruel to his wife's children. According to family sources, Christian's stepfather, Luis Blanco, exhibited severe violence towards Christian and his siblings. On October 22, 2010, Christian, aged 11, arrived at school with a visible black eye. Alarmed teachers and administrators inquired about the injury, and Christian revealed that his stepfather had assaulted him earlier that morning. Christian required medical attention, prompting the involvement of law enforcement officers and the Department of Children's Services. Despite attempts to reach Christian's parents, only his mother attended. Subsequent efforts to communicate with Galagara Blanco, the stepfather, proved fruitless. Concerned, authorities proceeded to Blanco's residence, where they were met by a frightened baby girl at the door. Upon entering, they tragically discovered Galagara Blanco's lifeless body. Shockingly, he had taken his own life in the presence of the children. The story doesn't conclude there. It emerges that the reason behind his suicide was his desire to evade prosecution. Medical examinations uncovered not only physical abuse towards Christian, but also other forms of mistreatment. Subsequently, 2 forensic psychiatrists concluded that Christian hadn't fully developed emotionally, but could potentially undergo rehabilitation. This revelation shed light on Christian and Susanna's ordeal from a young age, explaining his reserved demeanor and susceptibility to agitation. It now becomes clear why Susanna hesitated to disclose the truth about David's broken leg. It wasn't her first encounter with the Department of Child Services. Unfortunately, even with the understanding of Christian's childhood, State Attorney Angela Corey decided to charge the 12-year-old with first-degree murder and have him tried as an adult. Corey claimed that she was sympathetic to Christian's unfortunate background, but there are other kids who come from even worse backgrounds and resort to murder. Therefore, the state decided to put him on trial as an adult, which made him the youngest person to be prosecuted for first-degree murder in Jacksonville, Florida. Debate ensued over the decision to compel a 12-year-old who had endured trauma, abuse, and neglect to testify in a trial for one of the most serious criminal offenses. Many argued that Christian's violent actions stemmed from the trauma inflicted upon him by his family, thus absolving him of full responsibility. While some acknowledged Christian's partial culpability, they deemed a first-degree charge too severe. Instead, they advocated for juvenile prosecution, which would afford Christian the opportunity for rehabilitation and potential release at the age of 21. Conversely, if tried as an adult and convicted of murder, Christian faced the grim prospect of life imprisonment without the chance of parole. A mother named Alicia Torres, whose 2 children attended the same school as Fernandez, and juvenile defense attorney Melissa Higgins collected 180,000 signatures for a petition opposing the boy being tried as an adult. Because according to classmates and teachers at school, Fernandez is a student with difficult circumstances, but a normal mentality. He is also an obedient, gentle, and polite student. Therefore, he cannot be convicted as a criminal of intentional murder. Then there were those who thought of Christian as a violent kid who will turn into a dangerous man one day. Therefore, he should be locked away for life. It is a difficult and controversial situation. Punishing a broken kid would unravel his life further in the wrong direction, but they couldn't not let him go without punishment. There's just no happy ending to this story. Christian's lawyer tried to submit an appeal to be tried as a juvenile on his behalf, but it was denied. In August 2012, Christian's lawyers successfully convinced the judge to eliminate the interrogation footage of Christian admitting to shoving his stepbrother, claiming that the 12-year-old didn't understand the capacity of the situation during the time he was questioned. This victory opened up a huge possibility for Christian to receive a lower sentence. In February 2013, he accepted a plea deal, admitting guilt as a juvenile to manslaughter and aggravated assault. His mother faced prosecution for aggravated manslaughter, as authorities believed her delay in seeking medical help for her unconscious son contributed to his death. Initially pleading guilty, Susanna's defense revealed during her pretrial hearing that she suffered from domestic PTSD and poverty, having become a mother at just 12 years old. This argument played a crucial role in her case. Instead of imprisonment, Susanna received a suspended 10-year sentence with probation in August 2013. However, she lost custody of her children to the state and was prohibited from contacting Christian without legal supervision. Perhaps this outcome, while harsh, acknowledges that Susanna struggled to fulfill her maternal duties, a situation influenced by circumstances beyond her control. In 2018, a day after his 19th birthday, Christian was finally released from the Department of Juvenile Justice. Originally, his probation order required him to hold a job, enroll in school, and maintain little to no contact with his family or minors. But his defense attorney managed to plead for some of those conditions to be temporarily suspended. They also made sure Christian would get counseling treatment and other help. State Attorney Angela Corey, who initially decided to charge Christian, collaborated with the defense to create the probation condition. Corey stated, "We believe this was the best way to resolve this case and to reach the middle ground we were striving for from the inception. A middle ground that would both punish and rehabilitate Christian Fernandez." Evidently, the judicial system is evolving towards a more rehabilitative approach for juveniles, aiming to facilitate their reintegration into society. Despite facing a life sentence without parole at the tender age of 12, Christian Fernandez benefited from advocacy groups and a supportive defense team, advocating for his best interests. The essence of the legal system lies in correction rather than condemnation. With this in mind, one can hope that Christian will find healing from his past and forge ahead on a journey to becoming a constructive member of society. Christian's case has permanently altered the perception of prosecuting and penalizing young individuals in the United States. Moreover, it has shed light on the troubling cycle of domestic abuse, where victims may sometimes transition into offenders themselves.